Of the Lee County Board of Education. I certainly want to welcome everybody to this meeting. I'd like to welcome in particular Mrs. Salafia from who represents our military families. Would you like to address the board before we begin, Mrs. Salafia?
I just want to remind everybody the Air Force is having a mock deployment line during spring break for Air Force families with children aged 6 to 13. It's going to be from 10 to noon, and they can sign up at the Pope Airmen and Family Readiness Center. So it'll be just like the parents going through a deployment. They'll have the duffel bags, they'll check their duffel bags, they'll have a lunch, they'll get briefings on a child's level, and all that. So just a reminder of that. And then the second reminder is, while we're here, we have a few weeks prior, but April is month of the military child. Schools should be thinking about all the military children in their schools. And purple is the color of all branches of the service. So it's usually called Purple Up. So we might be thinking about our future. Okay.
Thank you for representing our military families. And if you'd please now join me for a moment of silence as we reflect on the activities of the day. Thank you, and you now stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our next agenda item is public participation at board members, and I would like to read a portion of the policy that guides public speaking in front of the board. Public comment shall not interfere with the board's duty to conduct orderly and efficient meetings. Individuals who address the board shall not use language that is obscene, vulgar, contains fighting words, or otherwise disrupts the orderly conduct of business. Discussions regarding particular employees, litigation, student records, or other potentially confidential matters may not be discussed during the public comment session. Our first speaker is Stephen Roman. Please.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Good evening, Board. Dr. Bryan, my name is Stephen Roman, and I teach at Lee County High School. I'm the Science Department Chair, and I've taught here since 2005. I wanted to take a couple minutes to talk to the Board about the search process that will take place to find a new principal for Lee County High School. On Thursday, Dr. Bryan came to our school and announced that Kenna Wilson would be moved to the central office to direct the special education, the EC department, which is a fantastic move. She's going to do a great job, as she's done here for the past 3 years. Before Dr. Bryan came, there were several rumors that were circulating within the community about who was going to be the principal of Lee County High School. So in a lot of people's minds, it seemed like the decision had been made already. But Dr. Bryan assured us there's going to be a search process that goes on. Unfortunately, since that announcement has been made, those rumors have just continued to escalate and grow. And what it started to do is chip away at the morality of the school, prevent us from doing the work that we need to do to finish out the school year in a very strong manner. Kenna Wilson has done a tremendous job these past 3 years of building up a school where we've expanded our academic programs, the IB programs, the AP programs. We've had training for teachers in AVID and ESL and the SIOP method, and all the great things in terms of leadership and having teachers take on those leadership responsibilities needs to continue for the success not only of our school, but of the district. It's easy sometimes to compare schools and say, well, Southern Lee does this and Lee County does that, but we have two excellent high schools in the county, and I just want to make sure that these rumors, I'm sure, are not going to influence any decisions I know that the board makes. I just ask that teachers at the high school have the opportunity to give input into that search process. We have a SIT team, we have the leadership team, it's really the same committee together, and I ask that they be considered in giving input into this search process. If nothing else, Ken O. Wilson was the heart and soul of the school, and if you kind of rip that out of the school, then you need a transplant that's going to make sure that that school continues vibrantly, which we know you all want to happen. I would be more than happy to help out in that process, as I'm sure a lot of other teachers would as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Mrs. Holland?
I'm not quite as elegant in speaking as Mr. Roman, and if I get if I get out of line, just put me right back. Good evening, board. My name is McCauley Holland, and some of you may have already read a letter that I sent to all board members this afternoon. I'm here tonight to discuss the needs of Lee County High School. We need a principal who puts students first, is a visionary, and introduces new programs to enhance and further student and staff ambitions. A principal who has integrity, who does not sway with the way the wind may tend to blow. A principal who holds fast and leads. And we have all this and more with our present principal. If the board feels we can find better, a quick fix, then you are setting yourselves and us up for failure. This, in turn, spells failure for the students and staff of Lee County High. I personally feel, as do others, that this is a grave injustice. Consistency is the #1 key to success in school. This does not take place in 1, 2, or 3 years. It is built over time. Higher performing schools in some areas have had the same principal for at least 10 years. Trevor Pilgrim states in an article, Consistency in Key Schools. Students value consistency. Inconsistency causes confusion. It destroys trust, community, and a positive school climate. I feel this is what this move is going to do. I am asking for this move to be overturned and our principal be reinstated. If this move is completed, you are allowing chaos to take over once again. So please take that into consideration. Also, I would like to add that April coming up is Autism Awareness Month. Also, I'm a big EC advocate, as most of you already know. Some people, wherever you plant them, will grow, and I know. But I'm telling you that we need what we've got here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Holland. Our next public speaker is Christy Holder.
I just have one question for you. On the board meeting on February 10th of 2015, I asked about some public information, was told that it was going to be given to me. Still has not been given to me. Just kind of wanting to know how y'all stand on that. Is public information public? Went through the right steps to request it, but I still have not received it. I really just wanted to let you know I still have not received the public information that I requested since February 10th and some before before that. I didn't know how long it takes to stuff like this.
I will check on the procedure.
Thank you.
I would now like to share with the board our mission here. Lee County Schools will teach each individual the social and academic skills needed to become a responsible and productive citizen. And I'd also like to share Policy Code 2120, which guides the behavior of board members. We must avoid the conflicts of interest and appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of the board. We must avoid the solicitation and/or acceptance of gifts in return for advice or assistance on matters concerning the operation of the business of the board. We must avoid the misuse of public funds. We must avoid misrepresentation or falsification of facts and avoid making confidential information public. At this point, is there a motion to approve the agenda of March 7th, 2016?
Mr. Chair, I move that the Lee County Board of Education approve the agenda for March 7, 2016.
And is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The agenda for March 7th is approved. Now, is there a motion to approve the minutes for February the 9th and February the 18th?
Mr. Chairman,
Go right ahead.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from February
9th.
9th and 18th.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The minutes are approved. And I'd like to continue at this point with announcements. Dr. Bryan.
This time I have the great honor tonight to recognize one of our school board members, and I'll read this from the report. Each year, the School Board Association awards school board members with certificates regarding the number of hours they've received for professional development. It makes sort of a recognition of those who have earned a specific number of hours and they've earned a specific sort of level of credit and honor. And tonight we get to award one of our board members what is a certificate of achievement, which means 101 to 200 hours of professional development for a board member, which is really dedication and a great, I think, a great dedication to boardsmanship. So at this time, I'd like for everybody to join me in recognizing Tamara Brogan for her certificate of achievement.
And certainly on behalf of the board, I'd like to congratulate Mrs. Brogan on her time spent, and you make us all look smart, and we appreciate that.
Thanks.
Let's continue now with the superintendent's report.
I'd like to ask Dr. Atkinson to come forward for the Clean School of the Month award.
Say good evening again, everyone I haven't seen today, so good evening to you. Again, it's the time to recognize our Clean School of the Month award, and this month's winner is Sandley Middle School. We're proud of them, and at this time I'd like Ms. Betsy Bridges and Ms. Keisha Durr to come up and accept the award.
Thank you. We're very proud of our custodial team, but I am going to turn this over to Keisha Durr because she's in charge of our custodians and that department. We're very excited for their accomplishment.
Just wanted to thank the board for recognizing our amazing team. They truly does take a village. I am so proud of our team. They put their heart and soul into everything they do, and it shows. At this time, I want to introduce 3 of our 5 members of our dream team. This is Ms. Monica Hawes, Ms. Allison Keever, and Mr. Freddie Atkins.
Congratulations to San Lee. I know the exciting part is y'all been here before, so very exciting. The person who is supposed to be our recipient of the Superintendent's Extra Effort Award could not be with us tonight, so we're going to bump that to the next meeting, if that's okay with everybody. The accountability update, just like to let everybody know the other day, and I know Ms. Brogan will be talking a little bit about this in her report for our curriculum instruction. Thought our principals, some of which are with us tonight, I thought did an outstanding job in presenting their information about the school improvement plans and all the efforts they have going forward. I know a number of the board members were there to hear that, and I won't spoil Ms. Brogan's thunder, but she will, I'm sure, have a few words to say about that. And also just to let you all know, we are sort of in an in-between process now with our benchmarks. Our middle schools have gotten their benchmarks back, and our lead teachers have gone over that with our middle school principals. And middle school principals now are meeting with our teachers and their professional learning communities, going over that data. And the window is about ready to open up. Actually, it opened up today for our high school benchmarks. So because of the differences in the schedules and calendars, it's a little bit of an overlap, but that's where we are. And as you all already know from the meeting from the other day, we have a lot of people working really hard and moving forward. And the other thing I'd just like to mention is our ACT testing, I thought went off pretty well the other day. I think our staffs at both all three high schools actually did a great job, and should include Bragg Street in that as well. It's really tough to put all the logistics in place where you're trying to test a class of students, meaning a year, 700 students in essence, trying to test them while you have the entire rest of the school sort of in operation at the same time. And I think our folks do a great job with that. And right now we're in the process of, we have already had a meeting with the folks who are in charge of testing at each of the high schools. And they have compiled their lists of students who did not test the other day for various reasons. And they are communicating with them and talking with their parents and making sure everybody's straight for the makeup day to go there. Dr. Smith, concludes my report.
I'd like to continue at this point with committee reports, and I'd like to start with curriculum instruction from Mrs. Brogan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple things that have happened over the course of the month with curriculum instruction. We had a high school curriculum instruction committee meeting here at the Lee County High School on February 3rd, and we talked about the budget preparation process is getting started, so that's underway. We also talked about the new course guide that has been updated, and there's a few things that were changed in it, but I just want to say about that, I was so impressed with that. We talked about it last year, and they revamped it all last year, you know, and as a parent, it's so user-friendly, because I have a student here at Lee County High School, and it makes it so easy because everything was categoried and table of contents, there's an index, and so I know that a lot of time and effort went into that, so I just want to say thank you to everyone who worked on that. I know it was a huge undertaking, and this year they just made some tweaks here and there, but it's very outstanding, and I think it really helps parents as they sit down with their students to decide what to register for next year. It just makes it so much more easier, so I really am thankful for all that work that went into that and everyone working hard on that. We also had a best practice presentation with Mr. Dawson-Bach from Southern Lee. He gave a presentation on some best practices that they do with structured assistant principal responsibilities. Trying to get that all out is what he talked about. We also had an AIG update with Gail Smith, and she's working hard as well as other people in the district to kind of get the AIG program up and running again and where we want it to be. And we talked a little bit about registration. The ACT boot camp went very well. There was a lot of talk about that as well. And just different things that are going on at the schools and district-wide. We talked about AVID and Guidance Counselors Week. But also we had a meeting last week on February 23rd. We had a joint curriculum instruction meeting at Sandley. And there we had all three levels represented, high school, middle school, and elementary school. And the principals gave an update of the school improvement plans that they talked about at the beginning of the year. And the idea for this joint came up a couple months ago. We had talked about ways that we could improve curriculum instruction committee and make it more beneficial for everybody involved. I definitely wanted the committee members to feel like they were, learning and growing by coming to the meeting, and it was very beneficial for them to be there. And so we looked at ways that we could, make it improved. Yes. So we came up with the idea of that it would be great twice a year to come together as a school district and look at our school improvement plans that everybody works so hard on the beginning of the year and see how we are. You know, a mid-year kind of report on how things are going, and then we're going to do it again to talk about how the whole year went. So twice a year we would like to do this. So I want to thank all the principals for their hard work in putting that all together and coming and talking about it and giving us kind of an update of where their schools are, not just in reference to their school improvement plans, but also, you know, changes that they've made throughout the year that they've seen that need to be made, and how their school improvement plan is working. And also, you know, they talked about where they are with their benchmarks and all that information. So I do thank everyone for the hard work that they put into that joint meeting, and I did learn a lot from it. My hand was tired from writing so many notes. It was really good. So thank you so much for your participation in that. And our next meeting is this week on Wednesday. It will be at Deep River. It's the Elementary Curriculum Instruction Committee meeting.
Thank you, Mrs. Brogan. Let's continue with Facilities and Technology. Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We held our meeting on February 23rd. We had Larry Price in from Synergistic to make a presentation on energy savings. We're still looking at that. We also had a bid on the asbestos abatement at Warren Williams. Went to a company called Empiricon in the amount of $60,175. And the only other thing we dealt with was a surplus football helmet situation. Got that squared away. Our next meeting is March 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Finance Committee is, of course, chaired by Mr. Akinosho, who is out of town and couldn't be here. Mrs. Bowen, could you step up in his absence?
I can give a very brief update because I just realized that he wasn't down there. Our Finance Committee met 2 weeks ago, and we got some feedback on the expenses of the different schools and board members. But the main thing that we had is Dr. Bryan presented his first version of the next year's budget request, and so we've kind of taken a look at that and given some initial input, and that will be taken up with our planning session this Thursday. Yes. Our first work session will be this Thursday at 5 o'clock in the basement of the Heinz building, and then we'll follow up again on Monday the 14th with a second work session. So that's my somewhat rambling memory of what we did at the last finance meeting.
Sorry, I couldn't give you more advance notice.
I should have been on that. I wasn't. I apologize.
And since you have the podium, why don't you consider with policy committee?
All right, now that one I was a little more prepared for. The policy committee met on the 18th of February and went through 2 policies that we have been wrangling with, it seems like, the entire school year. But we felt pretty confident to bring them before the board for first reading tonight. These 2 policies, one on staff-student relations and one on employee use of social media. Needless to say, we live in a world where social media is changing by the second, so trying to nail down a policy regarding social media usage is almost futile. The minute it's like nailing Jell-O to a wall. The minute you think you've got it, it gets away from you again. So I tried to reach out to our board members to read through this and give the committee any feedback that you can on these, because it's definitely something we want done right and done right the first time. So that was the primary objective of the policy committee, and we do have these 2 policies on for first reading this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Bowen.
And I'm sorry, our next meeting is March 22nd.
Right.
Mr. Chair, I did forget one thing, and I'm sorry. On the consent agenda this evening, there is something from curriculum instruction. It is the information from the 2015-16 Lee County Schools Summer Achievement Program for the summer. So that's on our consent agenda, and I just want to say that I'm really excited about this, and I'm really glad it's on there today, and I'm excited about going forward this summer camp for the students to help with achievement. So just want to say that that's on there tonight.
So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
And is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion, or is there anything else you'd like to add to that, Mrs. Brogan?
No, that was it. I just forgot to get that in there.
Is there any further discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The consent agenda is approved. The next item under unfinished business is board policy second reading. Mrs. Bowen, if you would like to make that motion, please.
I would love to as soon as it opens on my screen. Thank you. I move that Lee County Board of Education approve the second reading of the following policies. Policy number 2320, 4520/6120, and 5120.
And is there a second to that motion?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion concerning these two policies that we're considering for second reading? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. These two motions are approved. And under new business, Mrs. Bowen, if you would like to make your motion for first reading of policies.
I move that the Lee County Board of Education approve on first reading the following policies: 4040/7310 and policy number 7335.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I just want to say good job to the policy committee on those, because those are some tough policies, and they worked really hard over the last couple months on those, and so that's never an easy task. So good job, policy committee.
I would certainly like to concur, and the policy committee really worked hard with this social media. I don't even understand social media, let alone write a policy to try to govern it. But
Well,
good job.
They were tough.
What I did want to say about this policy is, as we're putting it together, the challenge is that social media, technology, all of that is a vital tool for education. And in recognizing that faculty and staff use this technology for valid instructional purposes, it's very easy to go too far the wrong way and say no communication with any student via any technology, and that's certainly not conducive to a good learning environment in a technological world. And so what we've strive to do is define and develop a policy where valid use of that technology is not only approved but encouraged, while at the same time safeguarding both instructor and student from any semblance of impropriety, to build a policy where it's easy to follow and it builds that case for good, purposeful use of technology, and it avoids any potential abuses. And that was our hope in building the policy, and that's why I definitely kind of encouraged everyone to please give us any feedback if you see anything in it that looks not restrictive enough, too restrictive. That's what first reading is definitely for, because we still have 30 days before we come back for second reading. Thank you.
And that would certainly give us an opportunity to revisit that if necessary.
Yes.
Good. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Hearing none, board policies are approved on first reading. And at this point, I'd like to call on Dr. Livingston to make a motion for a closed session.
I move that the Lee County Board of Education go into closed session for the purpose of discussing information that is privileged, confidential, or not a public record under NCGS Section 143-318.11A1.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion concerning the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. We will adjourn to closed session, please.
So, you're expected to report back to the class next week.
We are back in open session, and I will entertain a motion to approve the Human Resources Report as presented.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the Human Resources Report as presented.
And is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And having said that, is there a motion for adjournment?
I make a motion we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned.
Goodness gracious, at the collection.